Hello, I'm Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. This is the 11th video in making the Beginners Sampler Quilt. Now I'm going to take you through all steps to complete this quilt. Now there are going to be 12 blocks in all, so we've got one more to go. Now if you're just getting started and you want to catch up on all of the blocks, at the very end of the video is the Sampler Quilt playlist. Click on that and it will list all of the videos, including the supply list. Okay, so let's take a look at the 11th block, and it is called Northern Lights. This is a very popular block in the quilt world, and it's relatively easy to put together. It's pretty fast. You have two 4 patches, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why it's called a 4 patch. And then we have 2 large half square triangles. Okay, so let's get started and go over the cutting instructions. All right, now all of the finished sizes of the squares is 12.5 by 12.5 inches square. I'm using just 2 of my fabrics in this block. Now, if you're just catching up, I use 3 fabrics, A, B, and C, but you can use as many different fabrics as you like. In this block, it's just 2 fabrics, A and C. C is always my background fabric. So, fabric A, you're going to need 1 7.5 inch square, 4 3.5 inch squares, and out of fabric C you're going to need the same thing, 1 7.5 inch square and 4 3.5 inch squares. Now if you've never cut quilt fabric out before, watch the video Tips for Cutting Quilt Fabric, and I go into great detail on how to do this so that you're not cutting one little piece of fabric out at a time. This is also the block layout, and the letters in the block represent the fabric. So this is fabric A, fabric C, and so forth. Okay? All right, so now take your 2 large 7.5 inch squares. You're going to have one of fabric A and C, and on the lightest one that you have, you're going to draw some lines. Your first line will be corner to corner. Okay? So you're going to have one center line. Use a pencil or a fabric marker. Then you're going to draw 2 more lines 1/4 inch away from the center line. So take your 1/4 inch line on your ruler and place it on that center line. Okay? Then draw a line. Then do the same thing on the other side. Place your 1/4 inch line on that center line and then draw one more line. Okay, so now you're going to have 3 lines on there. Now take your 2 large squares, bring them right sides together of fabric A and C. Okay, these 2 outer lines are your stitch lines, so go ahead and stitch on both of those. Then take your ruler, place it back on the center line, and you're going to cut the block in half. Okay, so now you've got 2 pieces here. Have the darkest side of your half square triangle facing up, and you're on the back side of the fabric right now. Press your seams with your iron. So whenever you hear me say press, I mean with an iron, not finger pressing. Then open both blocks up and press on the top, pushing this seam towards the darkest side of your block. Okay, so you're doing 2 of these. All right, so now take them and you're going to square them to 6.5 inches. Right now they're roughly 7 inches square, and we want to really get it nice and perfect. So take your center line, your diagonal line on your ruler. And if you don't have a square ruler, I highly recommend you use one, and I would recommend you purchase a 12.5 inch square ruler, and that will get you through this entire quilt project. All right, so now take the diagonal line and place it on the seam. Okay, now while you're doing that, you want to make sure you have a little bit of fabric hanging out past these two edges here. Now here are the 6.5 inch lines here and here. Make sure you also have fabric extending out past those two lines. All right, once you've got it all lined up, you're going to go ahead and cut just two sides, okay? Now, take the block and turn it. Okay, now here are my two previously cut edges. So now take your 6.5 inch lines on your ruler and place it on those two previously cut sides. Also, making sure that the diagonal line is still on that seam. Okay, once you've got it all lined up, go ahead and cut your last two sides. And you're going to do this squaring on both your half square triangles. So when you're done, you should have two. Okay, now let's work on the 4 patch. So take all of your squares. You're going to have 4 of A and 4 of B. Pair them up with an A and a C, excuse me. Bring right sides together. Okay? Line up your edges and stitch 1/4 inch seam right along here. When you're done, you're going to have 4 of these. All right? So take all 4 and have the dark side facing up. Press your seam again with your iron on all of them. Lift it up and press on top, pushing your seams towards the darkest side. Okay? All right, do that on all of them. All righty, now you're going to take 2 of them and pair them up. Okay? So that it looks like this. Now, to make it have that 4 patch look, you're going to turn one of them. All right, so that it looks like that. Now place one on top of the other, bringing right sides together. And while you're doing this, you want to match your seams. Make sure that the seam on the bottom is going in the opposite direction of the one on top. And if you did all your pressing correctly, like I did earlier, it's not going to be an issue. Always pin that seam because sometimes it'll shift while you're stitching. So pin that seam, and you can pin across if you like and stitch 1/4 inch. And do that on your other set. So now when you're done, you are going to have 2 4 patches. Okay? Now we're going to press them. And it doesn't matter which side is up or which way it's turned at this point. So go ahead and press on the back side and here. Then unfold both blocks, press on the top, pushing the seam in one direction. Okay? And do that on the second one also. Now take your 2 4 patches and lay them out like this, so that you have A, and A, okay? Then take your 2 half square triangles and lay them with the darkest side going into the center, like this, okay? All right, now you can see your Northern Lights pattern. Now we're going to stitch each row together separately. So lay your blocks on top of each other, okay? Line up your edges. And after you've gotten your edges all lined up, go ahead and stitch 1/4 inch here and here, okay? Now, you've got your 2 rows stitched together. Have it to where the back side of your half square triangle is facing up at you, and you're still folded. The 2 sides are folded. Press your seams again with your iron. Then open it up and press on top, pushing your seams towards the half square triangle. Do that on both of them, towards the half square triangle. Okay? Now, lay your block out like this, Okay, we're almost done. And now you're going to lay the 2 rows on top of each other. And bring that in there. Again, match those seams, making sure they're going in opposite direction. Pin your seam so that it does not shift while you are stitching. Finish pinning across, and always pin the seams down even if you're not matching, because they have a tendency to shift. Okay, and then once you've got it pinned, stitch 1/4 inch here, and then one more little step. Your block is still folded. After you stitch, press on the back side, then open it up, press on the top side, pushing this seam all in one direction. And there you have your Northern Lights block. This is a very pretty block, and I think you're really going to enjoy this one, okay? I really did. Of course, I love all my blocks. All right, now let's show you what the last block is. This is also a very classic block. It's called Hole in the Barn Door, and in here you've got a 6.5 inch square, some strips on each side of the square, and 4 small half square triangles. This is a fun block and relatively easy and quick to put together. Okay, and I'll show you how to do it. Really simple. Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you. Don't forget to click on the playlist at the very end of the video. Now, to keep informed on all my future videos, click on one of my subscribe buttons. There's one up there floating around towards the end of the video. It's a picture of my face, round picture. It's just floating around up there. That's a subscribe button. Down in the lower right-hand corner throughout the entire video is one that's red, and it actually says subscribe. So you can click on that one at any time. When you click on that, YouTube will prompt you for your email address. Enter that information, and the next time I have a new video, YouTube sends you an email with a big button in the center. You click on it and it takes you directly to my latest video. I'm Cheryl, and I'm really glad you came to my sewing room, and I'll see you next time, and happy sewing.